know who the fuck to trust. Is he my friend or my foe? I'm a ex drove, yeah, she give me that claim as well. I remember back when I was younger, I was happy. Nowadays feel like no one understand me. I'm good at artists, silly, I'm bad.
Hey everyone, this week's going to be a little bit different. I am going to help Jonesy put in his reduction gears. He ordered 63% reduction gears for my GQ and his GU at the same time, and I had the $1,000 track trip coming up, so I wanted to hurry up and get mine in. So I put him in pretty much that night, and now he's just taking his gearbox out to do the clutch and rear main and throw out bearing and all that kind of stuff. So he's ready to put his reduction gears in. So yeah, I'm going to head out to his and I'll show you guys how to put in some reduction gears.
Surfing, rocking the parking lot, my weed louder than like the gay bubble. I be on her mind like non-stop, yeah. Had to cut the little thought, no tomahawk. Remember smoking blunts with my friends. The seconds a couple of days, yeah, lost a lot to the fan.
So once the transfer case is off the car, the first thing you have to do is get rid of all the switches and breathers. I've already had one casualty. So this is the sensor that goes in the back of the transfer case. These can be super jammed in there and they're only held in by a little tag. Oh. That'll teach you for going to the Cape and filling it with red shit. Take two.
You're only $400 then.
One would be four-wheel drive and the other one would be... Well, there's no light behind, like. A couple of these switches look really similar, so I just do a unique mark with a permanent marker on either end so I know where they go back. So once you've got all the sensors out, it's time to get the four-wheel drive linkage off. This is one of the few things that is different between a GQ and GU. Now that everything's been removed from the exterior, it's time to take the back of the transfer case off. These are all 14mm bolts and it's easy if you use a rattle gun. I didn't get removing the back of the case on video, but it's easiest if you use a pry bar at either end. You'll see tags to pry from. Once you've got that removed, just slide the plastic gear off of the speedo, and then you've got to remove the first bearing off the main shaft. Make sure you get yourself a proper gear pulling kit. If you go trying to pry these bearings off with a screwdriver, you could warp them or do damage to the gears. Yeah, I'm pulling the bearing off, aren't I?
Oh, you're only half in here.
That's all right. Didn't have much to go. And you can see here, Jones is just taking the circlip off the end of the four-wheel drive selector shaft.
That's all.
So we've taken out the top case, the circlip for the selector, and now we're down to taking the synchro for the low range selector out. And when I did it before, this spring popped out and I couldn't work out how it went back in. I had to do a heap of Googling one night, so. Once you take that spring out, all of this can lift off the main shaft and you're left with this bare housing. So down to the first half of the case, as you can see. So we're going to separate the next part now. Is that the right side?
I think so.
And once you have all those 14mm bolts removed, you can pry away the case the same as before. Yeah, that bearing's coming.
Go again.
So you're about to see a bit of confusion about 4-ball bearings that came out of the case onto the bench. It turns out GUs have 4-ball bearings behind the switches, whereas GQs don't. You reckon I can work out where those fucking other 4 bearings come from? Maybe they're behind the switches.
You know about this?
Yeah. These 4 here. Mine didn't have them. Yeah, because those 2 going there. You might have to check the GU. Is that GU or GQ?
GU.
I reckon they go behind the switches. The only... Because the thing wasn't even apart yet.
You gotta ask the question, mate. You shouldn't be working on it.
Wait, that's going in the video. TD talk, mate. If you gotta ask, probably shouldn't be fucking...
Shouldn't be working on it.
Just keep that shim with that too. So you're gonna have fun with the die grinder in a minute. So when you go to the 63% reductions, you basically, this is one of the changes here, so you go from this one here to that one, and that's usually spins around in the bottom of this transfer case, and because this one's a lot bigger, they actually require you to die grind a fair bit out of the bottom of this case here, down around here. So Jones is going to do that because it's not mine. Basically around the bottom of this, we can, but what we'll do is it put that in it, and then you can see where it hits. But you'll have to start by grinding a bit out of there first. I'll just get this pulled off. It'll work out pretty well though, because when I was doing boggles and hills, I used to go second low to third low, and now I was just third low to fourth low. So, which kind of works well because they're straight across the valley as well. So like instead of going second to third, just third straight down. So it's easier to shift.
Yeah. Unless you're in a Land Rover.
Yeah. So everything in the second half of the case really is just pulling everything off your old gears, copying it over to your new gears. And you'll also have to die grind a little bit of the inside of the transfer case away to make room for the new bigger gears. I ended up having to like do all around the bottom of it. And the other thing is, yeah, so both sides of this, so that down to about there, and that one. Where is it? Oh, it's on the other side. So that'll have to go a fair bit, like down to the corner.
That gear will come off though.
Yeah, we've got to replace that gear.
That might be easier with fucking cut-off wheel anyway.
You know, I did mine with a real worn down cut-off wheel. So I'm not going to show exactly what and where to grind down in this video. It's not about that. Just follow the instructions from your manufacturer. This is just a rough guide. So I'm just rotating the gear to work out where we need to cut away.
Oh, you're cutting that out. Not that.
Yeah, this whole edge. But like, mate, see that down there where I did the scratch? Yeah. So that's pretty much got to have a 90. Probably be easy with a grinder. You got like a thick cutting disc.
Just don't.
Is that safe?
Yeah.
Right. So just grind the case away bit by bit, putting the gear back in intermittently to give it a test. Make sure you clean away any schwarf in between so that you don't get it all through the bearing.
Yeah.
Right, so that's done. I'll change everything over to this. Oh! Didn't hurt, it was just scary. So here we're just swapping all the bearings from the old lay shaft over to the new one.
The wagon you ruined.
The wagon I ruined! Just ask anyone on Instagram. Alright, so this can go back in that. Oh, I need to put that Welsh plug in too. You got a bit of red Loctite. So this bit can be a bit fiddly because the gears need to mesh as they go back into the case, so you need to be pressing both of them in at the same time. Lift up. Yeah, that's where we go. Mike's clean first. Right. And so with the new low range gears all assembled and put back in, it's time to put the center case back together. Onto the last bit now, all the low range gears are in, and I am onto putting the chain drive bit, the furthest bit to the back. These are basically got to go on at the same time. So hang the chain over that, face that downwards, yep. Get the chain into it properly, like that. It's in there and the tension's off it. So the transfer's back together, and this is just putting the four-wheel drive selector back onto the gear. You do need to make sure this goes up the right way because it has a profile on the top of the tooth that meshes with the bulk ring. And then we can put the circlip back on the selector shaft and it's all locked in place.
Fucking losing it, Jonesy.
This is that spring that I was talking about in the beginning of the video that came apart in mine. This is all laid out in the workshop manual for a GQ or GU. I highly recommend referring to that when you're putting it back in.
Bearing.
And again, if you're doing this yourself, follow the manufacturer's instructions and don't do half the shit that I do.
When I first did this, I freaked out because I didn't think there was enough room to get the circlip on. But it actually pushes down like that. Alright.
So that was the little speedo gear going back on, and then the final thing to go in is this little channel for the oil to run down, and then the back case can go back on.
Goo. Mr. Cooper's favourite colour. I reckon the worst part about doing these is the fact that every time you add a piece of transfer case, you're also getting a bearing home. What's that screw rod for? Little screws, I reckon. Any funny thing that you say is not going in. Have you got a screwdriver that's slightly bigger than the tiny screwdriver for tiny screws? Yeah, boy.
So now that the case is all pressed back together, we're just going around and putting all the sensors back in, the linkage back on, and the bolts back through the case, and then we can lift it onto the back of the gearbox.
So lastly, just putting the rear flange back on and the drum brake.
So that's a wrap. We have finished putting the reduction gears into the transfer case, and while Jonesy had the transfer case out, he also had the gearbox out to put a new clutch in, and so we've just finished lifting the box into the car. I didn't film any of that, so we put the flywheel in, the new clutch, just got the box back in, on the floor, like men, because we're OG men, aren't we, Jonesy? And yeah, so next we'll get the transfer case bolted up, and that'll be it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers, see you next time.